Hello, my friends. Well, I guess it's time for another rant. Do you like shrimp or prawns? I know, I certainly do. They're one of my favorite foods. I eat them about once a week. They're rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which can be useful to those of us who can't afford to eat grass-fed meat. And they're rich in important amino acids like taurine, which is really useful for those of us who, for some reason, don't like or have to limit their intake of red meat. They're high in complete proteins and minerals and low in fat, and that's real helpful for people who, for whatever reason, may need to limit their fat intake. All in all, they are delicious and nutritious as a part of a carnivore way of eating. And yes, I know some people are allergic to them, so of course I would not recommend that those people consume them. It seems stupid that I'd have to say that, but, when you're putting stuff out on the internet, you always have to comply with CYA procedure. That's cover your ass procedure, just in case not aware. Anyway, I wanted to share some things regarding shrimp production and harvest that a lot of people might not actually understand, that they might find helpful. I'm sure many of you have heard chefs and other cooking professionals talk about fresh fish being the best and that frozen fish is lower quality. There is a persistent attitude, especially amongst people who consider themselves foodies, that the reason fish gets frozen is because it's not high enough quality to be sold fresh, right? And so just the fact that it is frozen makes it undesirable. Well, I want to say unequivocally that I do not believe that that is true. I lived for 57 years on the coast of California, and I had access for most of my life to some of the most amazing fish harvests in the world. And I can tell you without a doubt that frozen fish and any kind of frozen seafood can be just as high a quality as fresh, and sometimes it's even better. Shrimp in particular is likely to be higher quality once it's been frozen than the stuff that's sold fresh. And the reason for that is that over 90% of the shrimp sold especially in the U.S., I'm not really sure about the rest of the world, but in the U.S., 90% of the shrimp that's sold retail has been frozen at some point. If you live anywhere further than 50 miles away from the coast or further than 50 miles away from a shrimp fishery, I can pretty much guarantee you that the shrimp that's being sold as fresh in your local market has been frozen and was thawed by the store. That's because once shrimp is dead, it begins to spoil within hours. Fresh shrimp can be too rotten to sell within 12 hours of them dying, unless they're frozen. Wild-caught shrimp is usually kept alive until it's bought by the processor, or it's frozen on the boat into great big solid blocks that are sold to restaurants and food processing companies. Most grocery stores and fishmongers who are selling fresh caught wild shrimp are selling shrimp that they've purchased frozen in a large block and have thawed previous to selling. Not to say that this is low quality shrimp. It's just as likely to be good quality. My point is that it was previously frozen. It's sold thawed simply for the convenience of the purveyor and the customer. In my opinion, the best way to ensure you're buying quality shrimp is to purchase individually quick frozen or IQF shrimp, either whole or unpeeled deveined tails, in the largest size you can afford. Larger shrimp are easier to keep cold, they're less susceptible to freezer burn, and they're harder to accidentally overcook. However, you may have noticed that larger shrimp tend to be significantly more expensive per pound than smaller shrimp. You know, some people may assume this is entirely due to the fact that larger shrimp are more marketable than smaller shrimp, and while that's true, it's not the whole story. Shrimp, being small, even the jumbo ones, about that big at their biggest generally, they have a large ratio of surface area to mass, which means they're very susceptible to freezer burn. And large pieces of meat like chicken breasts or steaks or chops can easily be vacuum sealed to protect them in the freezer, but it's kind of obvious why this won't work for shrimp. So what they do instead is they freeze the shrimp very quickly, and then they spray them with a layer of salt water and then refreeze them. This is called ice glazing, and it creates a layer of ice which protects the individual shrimp very well, as a matter of fact, from freezer burn, right? Now, keep in mind that the smaller the shrimp, the greater the ratio of surface area to mass, which means the more water is necessary to effectively ice glaze them. More water equals more weight, which means the smaller the shrimp, the more of the purchase price is going to be water. And when you consider this, it makes sense why the smaller shrimp price per pound would be a lot less. So IQF ice glazed, unpeeled, deveined shrimp tails, which is what I like to buy, can be as much as 25% added water weight in the bag, right? And with smaller shrimp, it's a little bit less with bigger shrimp. But and there's another 12 to 15% weight loss from taking the shells off. Recently, I measured out 260 grams of extra large, that's size 21 to 25 per pound, size frozen, deveined, unpeeled shrimp tails. And when they were thawed and shelled and patted dry, they weighed 190 grams. That's a 27% reduction in weight. Am I complaining? No, because I already understand how shrimp are marketed. They're priced to take into account the weight of the water used to protect them during storage. You just need to be aware that when you buy 2 pounds of frozen shrimp tails, they'll only yield about 23 ounces of actual meat. And this will also explain why in restaurants, you'll often read in menus that your dish will come with so many ounces of shrimp, and then when you get the plate in front of you, it looks like a lot less. So the menus don't have to tell you if they're using raw weight or cooked weight. And why should they? You know, why would you tell the customer they're getting 3 ounces of shrimp when you can get away with telling them it's 4 ounces? It's not a lie. It may not be completely honest, but, you know, it's not a lie. They don't have to tell you it's raw weight, but it almost always is. So, don't blame the fishermen or the fish farms. They're operating on minimal profit margins as it is. And it's hard to blame the processors and the food packers either. It costs money to properly package and ship something as fragile as shrimp. They have no choice but to pass that cost on to the customers. And are the restaurants gouging? I've been involved in the restaurant trade. They're probably not. The restaurant business has always been a high overhead business, you know. And so are the supermarkets overcharging? Well, all things considered, I really, really doubt it. The reality is shrimp is fragile, highly perishable, and a highly desirable commodity that requires specialized harvesting, handling, and marketing. If you want high quality shrimp, nobody's ripping you off. It's just going to cost what it costs. So the upshot is, if you like shrimp, please don't pinch pennies and expect to get a superior product. It is just not going to happen. So if you like your shrimp, you're going to have to pay for it. But enjoy what you enjoy. Thanks for listening. I hope you found it useful. And until I talk to you again, precious friends, peace, love, and meat. Bye-bye.